That's the idea. Okay, so let me see if I can move this on here. Okay, now, I was thinking about what Frankie just said, and I think it's very interesting because everything that you guys are going to learn here is going to be the theme for the next Facebook challenge, correct? Okay, so we're talking about marathons, hiking 10,000 feet, and etc. So I think everybody's up to it. Now, jokes aside, my name is Arthur Borges. I own and operate Arthur Borges Photography. And the idea of the company is to bring joy back to photography. And we do that by doing workshops and trainings and etc. with the perspective that we want people to start enjoying the process of photography again. And what I have been seeing over the years is that with the advent of cell phones and digital cameras, and Mike was talking about, okay, when we had 12 photos on a camera, we had to enjoy the process much more than just taking like 3,000 photos of the same spot. Okay, you're going to kill me with this. 3,000 photos of the same spot. And I think that's what a little bit of what I want to talk about today is how do we bring this love for photography back again? And how did I go through my journey on trying to achieve that? I think I want to start with this photo here. Has anybody been to this location? Has anybody know what this location is? I'm sorry? No, this is a pier in Southern California, okay? And it's a fantastic example of what happens in this kind of location. So this pier became very famous. Does anybody know who Peter Lik is? Have you ever heard about Peter Lik? Anybody? He's a famous photographer. And Peter has a very famous photo from this spot here. And this is a very accessible spot. It's just like out of a beach. You have a parking lot. You don't have to hike. You don't have to walk. You're pretty much there. But the interesting thing, as you guys can notice, is that there is one spot in this pier for you to take this photo. There are no 2, 3, 4 spots. There is one spot. And this one, I got there like 3 hours before sunset because I knew how bad it was going to be on exactly that spot with the forecast we had for that night. And after being there for 3 hours and experimenting with different perspectives and just sitting and wait and etc., I was over there, the sun was coming down and the colors were coming up in the sky. And this wedding photographer came in with a couple, and she decided to get exactly in front of my camera to take the photo. My wife was not there. She had gone with my daughter somewhere else, and you guys had to see my reaction. But in the end, I was able to get the photo. But this is just an example of what's happening with this kind of locations where people just go there, they take the photos, but they just don't enjoy the moment anymore. And that's exactly what a little bit I want to talk about today. So, oh, okay. No, my clicker is working. Okay, so if we want to talk a little bit about that, I want to go back to 30 years ago, 30-something years ago when I started doing photography. And has anybody here has an earlier memory of photography? Something that you guys remember from the first time that you took photos? Okay, Mike, anything that you remember? Yeah. Tell us about it.
It was a 1980.
Okay.
I was on vacation, and I parked the car, and across the street was a guy standing there. Great street shot. He had a little baseball cap on, with newspaper. People read newspapers back then, stuffed in the pocket of his coat. And my first street shot, I remember being very nervous about it. Able to get the shot. I was only so nervous I would only take one shot because I had to get out of there after I took the shot. So.
Yeah.
But I had to wait 33 years to be able to scan it, and then another 7 years to actually process it.
Yeah, my earlier memory is not as old as Mike, but this one is 25. Yeah, but this one is 25 years old, okay? And I was doing a specialization in photography here at Rice, one of the first times I lived in Houston many, many years ago. And the homework was play with light, okay? And I didn't even know what you could do. And this is a film photography, so you guys can imagine how fun this is to try to get this. Does anybody recognize this place? Where's that? That's the aquarium downtown. Yeah, so that's the carousel at the aquarium downtown. And I probably took a whole film of 36 photos in that location that night as part of my homework for the course I was doing. And I remember, and everybody here remembers this, you used to send out for processing and waiting 2 or 3 days, and then they would come back. And when I opened it, I said, oh my gosh, I can do something like this with photography, okay? And this was like a whole night over there during a weekday. At that time, I used to live near downtown, so I didn't have to drive like 40 minutes to get there. It was a little bit more easier, but it's like, that's probably the first time that I took a photo that I was really proud that I got something out of the techniques I could apply and try to retract a location like this in the way that you see here today. But if you want to rediscover the joy of photography, for me, I think what you need to do is to start thinking about how can you look at the world in a different way and start looking at it from a perspective that you want to find and you want to retract something that's new, that's different, and etc. And that's, I think, the motto that I try to do in a lot of the workshops that I run is, how can you start looking at things in a different way? And I think this, again, is a great example. This is one location that's part of my Colorado fall workshop. And it's I would say it's a waterfall that is not one of those places that you can find on Instagram 20,000 times anymore. It's a very remote place. You have to drive an ATV to get there. You cannot even drive a 4x4. You need to go in a small car. And when you get there, the question is, how do you retract this place in a peaceful way, just like I think this photo retracts? And I probably spent like an hour and a half in this location. And you can imagine, you can take this for like a whole day if you want to. This is like just like a dream of a place for you to take photos of. But the idea was, okay, how do I capture the serenity of the waterfall together with the fall colors and etc.? And after like probably an hour and a half, I was finally able to go up the mountain through the middle of the forest and get this view that you guys can see here. But for me, that's the joy of photography. It's like the joy of the adventure, the joy of trying to find a different way to portray a place like this that is not very common and people don't see that much. So let's see if that works. Has anybody seen this movie?
Yes.
No? Yes? Some people have? Okay, so I'm going to tell the story for those people that have not seen the movie without trying to spoil it too much. So this is a movie called The Secret Lives of Walter Mitty, okay? And the whole story, without trying to tell you guys the story for like a whole hour, it's like this guy here, Ben Styler, is looking for this famous photographer that has a photo that's going to be the last front page of a famous photography magazine. And this guy goes all over the world around trying to find this guy here. And finally, after like an hour and a half of back and forth and crazy things happening, he figures out, or he finds that this guy is somewhere in the mountains in a remote location trying to take a photo of this snow leopard. Okay, and I'm going to play a small clip for you guys to understand when I'm talking about the joy of photography, what does that mean? I hope everybody can listen. So if you have not watched this movie, I really tell everybody to just rent it and watch it, because if you love photography and you're thinking about how you can bring joy back, you definitely have to watch this movie. But one of the things that's crazy about this, okay, so, is this quote that is on the magazine, okay? to see the world, things dangerous to come, to see behind walls, to draw closer, to find each other, and to feel. That's the purpose of life. You can say that's the purpose of photography also. Okay, capturing the essence of life. If photography is about capturing the essence of life, how do you accomplish that on a day-to-day basis? And I absolutely love this photo, and I think it brings this perspective because I had the joy of spending like a whole morning with some of these animals a few years ago. And the idea was, okay, how can I capture the essence of a great horned owl, if I'm not wrong? Does anybody, who is the bird person? That's a great horned owl, right? Okay, that's what I thought. And I think the idea was, how do I capture this in a way that is going to bring the perspective on how beautiful this animal was. And I was playing around in different ways, and as I said, I had a lot of time with them. And when I saw the shadow, and one of the eyes illuminated and the other one not, with these very expressive eyes, I just thought that that's the best way to capture the essence of that moment. And I think this is a great example of what you should be doing if you think about how can you do that on a day-to-day basis with your photography opportunities as you try different things. But you also need to find beauty in every day. And this was an interesting one. This is a place in the Oregon workshop that I hope, I know some people here are going to go with Dara and I later this year, but that was one of those days that you go out and the weather is not helping. It's raining, it's windy, the light is horrible, and etc. And I was walking on this beach trying to capture something, so I didn't go back to the hotel without at least one photo that day. And then I noticed the waves crashing on this rock way away from the beach. And then I decided to say, okay, maybe that's the photo, okay? If I cannot do the sunset that I was hoping for, if I'm not going to do the clouds, I'm going to do the waves. And I absolutely love this photo because when I was taking this photo and I was focusing on the waves and trying high speed so I could try to freeze the moment, we had an opening on the clouds, and then the sun hit exactly the waves, and that's why you see that bright portion of light right in the middle of the photo. And it's like, okay, that's beauty itself. It's like, it's nothing more than water moving, but that's the idea on how you can try to do that on your day-to-day as you go to different places if you don't have another option on that day, for example. I like to talk about visual storytelling also. And this one is an interesting one because this is part of the Scottish workshop that we did the scouting back in 2024. And this is a very famous castle in Scotland. And we were thinking about, okay, how can we capture this place without 1,000 people? Because what happens is that you have the ocean coming in, you have this overlook here, but you usually have like 1,000 people on this overlook right in front of your photo. So we went back to the hotel. We came back. At that time of the year, I think the sunrise was like 4 o'clock in the morning. We came back at like 4:30. There was absolutely nobody there. But I also had to time that with the tide coming in so I could get the shadow of the castle on the water. Okay. But the idea was, okay, how can I describe this in a way that I'm trying to tell a story on this castle in this remote location? It's in the middle of an island, in a loch, in a lake in Scotland, and trying to tell that ambience from a Scottish point of view with all the clouds and everything. I was very happy that the clouds helped me that morning because it was cloudy and I could get that perspective on this photo. I think another one is the one that we had on the competition last year. And that's another place. It's like, who has been to Iceland here? Some people have been to Iceland here. And if you have been to Iceland, this is probably one of the most iconic mountains in Iceland. You get a lot of photos from these mountains from this side here. It's like people on this side taking photos of these mountains. But again, I wanted to tell a story on how big this place was. And the only way to do that was really from the air. Obviously, I was not going to rent a helicopter, especially in Iceland, where everything costs like $2,000. So I flew my drone like almost a mile into the ocean to get this photo. This is a 12 panoramic photo, a composite of 12 photos. I'm flying my drone, and my drone, the whole time I was flying my drone, it was saying, please bring me back because I'm going to fall. It was extremely windy. And at every moment, I was thinking, okay, this thing is going to fall in the ocean, and I'm going to lose all the money on the drone. But I was really happy with it because it was early in the morning also. The sun was shining. You had the clouds. But at the same time, it provides you that perspective on how big this place is without being the same photo that people are taking over and over again from these mountains in Iceland. That's another example from my Scottish workshop. And the idea was exactly the same as the castle one, that how can you capture that environment, the moody Scottish in a photo and tell a story with it, okay? This is a famous location in a place in Scotland called Isle of Skye. And we went there again in a very moody and rainy day. And as you can see, we were able to capture how big the place is, but at the same time, how isolated it is. As you can see, my car is pretty much the only one that's here, and I got a guy driving by at that moment. But that was the idea with this photo in terms of telling a story. Finally, on this team, this is a location where I'm hoping we can go when we go to Oregon later this year. This is the perfect place to take a sunset photo in Oregon as you drive through the coast. And we had an absolute fantastic sunset. What I don't understand, and I need to write down to the Oregon governor, is that this park closes 15 minutes after sunset. So you can imagine the situation to take this photo. You get to this place, you get this amazing light, this amazing location, and you set up your tripod, the tripod that's over there. You start taking photos, and then the rangers start walking by and say, okay, everybody go, everybody go, everybody go, everybody go. So it was really fast. This is a panorama also, so I had to do the panorama. So it was an interesting situation for sure. But some examples about how can you tell a story of the location, but with intention, okay? And I was talking with Daryl the other day, and Daryl was saying, oh, sometimes I go to this place and I don't really feel that I was able to capture the place the way I wanted. But for a long time now, I think I realized that if I want to go to an iconic location like this, you don't want to do tourism on a place like this. You want to go there with the intention to try to capture a story. And I think that's exactly what we have to do with some of these iconic locations that we go through to take photos. Okay, the other aspect is finding your voice. And I do a lot of environmental landscape. For those of you that don't know my story, I started as an underwater photographer. So I did underwater photography for many, many years. I started taking some landscape photos, and then I went into underwater photography, did that for like 20-something years. And then I started, okay, how can I apply everything that I learned from the oceans into the landscape approach that I have today? And trying to find a voice is like, how do you want to tell, what do you want to tell from a story point of view with the captures that you have? This is an interesting one. This was done in the Everglades National Park in Florida on a very stormy afternoon. And this is a composite of several photos with the different rays. So each one of these rays, they were taken in one photo, and then I composite them on this photo to give this perspective of how stormy it is. It's like my daughter is studying in Florida, and I go a lot to Florida to scuba dive. So if you have been to Florida on a stormy summer afternoon, you know that that's exactly that. And I remember one time I was taking photos in Florida, and we came back from the dive, and our boat was very far away. They had a problem with the engine, and we were waiting for the boat. And then we look back, and that's exactly what was coming our way with us in the water. So imagine you are in the water, this is coming your way, and you have a steel tank attached to your back. So that's probably not the best situation for you if you wanna have a good day. Experiment with different styles, and this is something I try to do a lot. Probably some people here have been to this location. This is a church in Arizona that's on the top of the mountains, and we went over there on a tourism visit. I was not planning to take photos at all. And as I was sitting there and just enjoying the place, I just noticed that the sun rays were coming into the church, and they were reflecting on the metal in the church, and they were doing exactly that kind of reflection on the image itself, okay? And this is not the kind of photo that you see me taking by any means, but you have to be in the moment, and you have to recognize the moment and being able to experiment with something different. I absolutely love this photo. I don't do portrait at all. For those of you that follow me, I almost don't do portrait. But that one for me, just because of the situation we're in, I think was very interesting to try with something different and get you a different perspective on what we could see. Okay, so let's talk about find your niche. As I said, I started as I wanted water photography, so did that for many, many years. This is me coming back from an hour scuba dive into a cave in Mexico. And this cave in Mexico is very known for this rays that come down at a certain hour of the day. So we timed the dive exactly when we came back to have the rays. They call them the fingers of God, or los dedos de Dios, okay? And that was my niche for many, many years. And if you look at my portfolio 10, 20 years ago, you would only see underwater photography. You almost would not see anything else. So that was my niche. But then when I started landscape photography, I started thinking, okay, how can I try to expand my niche and looking at different things? Not that I was going to abandon underwater photography, but let me try different things that I'm interested on. I absolutely love astrophotography. This thing about going to the middle of nowhere, okay, and taking photos of the sky, it's something that interests me. Am I good at astrophotography? I think I'm okay. I am not a great astrophotographer, but I'm okay. But I enjoy the process of doing it. And that, for me, is probably the most important thing. So for you to have an idea how much I enjoy the process of doing this. So we were in Maui. This is the Haleakala volcano. Has anybody been there? Yeah, some people have been there. So we were in Maui for a few days, and I figured out that I could get tickets to go to the Haleakala for sunrise. So I told my wife, look, we're going to go there for sunrise. I got the tickets, but I also want to capture the Milky Way at top of the volcano. The problem is that the Milky Way, that night, because we had the moon that night, the moon was going to set at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the sunrise was going to be 4:30. So we had an hour and a half to take the photo. But that also meant that we had to be there at 3 o'clock in the morning at the top of the Haleakala. So if you have been to Maui and we were in Lahaina, you know that's about a 2-hour, 20-minute drive. So we left our Airbnb around 1 o'clock in the morning to get to the top of the volcano at 3:20. I told my wife to stay at home. She said, absolutely not. I'm going to let you drive up this volcano at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm going with you. So while I was taking this photo out there and it was freezing, it was in the 30 degrees. So I had to take a whole bag of winter clothes to my summer vacation in Hawaii to take this photo. But if you know me, Frank knows me very well, so he's not surprised by that. Okay, so I was there for like an hour and a half taking this photo. That's, again, is a panorama of the Milky Way with the observatories on top of the Haleakala volcano. And after that, we just went to sunrise. So it was a perfect night. But I can tell it's like a very adventurous night. The next day we were broken. It's like nobody could do anything the next day. But I'm really happy with this photo. And then sometimes you try to find your niche on macro. It's like when I don't have anything to do, my specialty underwater is to take macro photography underwater. So I try sometimes to do the same thing at home. This is a stacked photo of a dragonfly that I found on my backyard. Okay, and I was really happy how it came up also. Okay. But again, that's not my niche. But I try different things knowing that, okay, everything that I try, I'm going to learn something so I can apply that to develop my own voice in terms of photography. And talking about that, I think as a photographer, as you develop, you're going to notice, for those of you that are serious on this and have been there for a long time, you're going to start developing your own aesthetic in terms of how your photos look like. So I would say, if you know my style, if you go through my social media, my portfolio, you're going to notice that I'm known for very strong leading lines, and you can see this very well here. Okay, I'm known for very bold colors. Okay, and this balance between shade and light. So all my photos, at least my best photos, are going to have these three components. This one was done in the Smoky Mountains in November last year. This is a location that I keep very secret. I don't tell anybody where this place is. A lot of people come to me and say, oh, where's this place? Where's this place? I don't tell anybody where this place is. But every time I go to the Smoky Mountains, I go over there because I know what time that sun is coming through those trees. And I know that I can capture some amazing photos in this location. I have never been to this location and not been able to capture great photos. So this is one of those. But that's the kind of aesthetic that I'm talking about. How do you develop that as a professional photographer or someone that just loves photography, and you start doing the same thing over and over again because you know that that formula is something that works for you. That's another example of the same one. You can see strong leading lines, bold colors, okay, and the light and the shadow balance here. Most people should not know this place. This is one of the most famous colonial churches in the northeast of Brazil. This place has been photographed like 1 billion times, okay? So when I got there, and by the way, this place is known, and other places in the world have this, but if you see those colorful things here, those are pretty much strips that they put on your wrist. And the tradition over there in this church is that as soon as you're making the knot, you have to make a wish. And if you let the strip fall, you cannot cut it, you cannot do anything with it. You have to let it fall. Your wish is going to happen. Okay? So a lot of people go over there with this understanding, and all the strips are in the front of the tree. So I'm laying on the floor in the middle of the city with my camera to take this photo, just to take this kind of perspective of the photo, because I wanted to capture it in a different way, different from the 1 billion photos that have been captured on the same place. I like to talk a little bit about embracing perfection also. And this is another one of my tries on astrophotography, okay? And that one has an interesting story. So that one is part of the Colorado Fall Colors workshop also. And this location is very interesting because we go to this place and we drove the car and we figure out, okay, this is the tree that we want to take a photo of. We know that the Milky Way is going to be exactly behind it. We went back to the car, we took a nap, okay, and then we came back in. But the interesting thing about this specific location is that this is on a park that I had read 2 weeks or 1 week before that they had mountain lions sightings at night, okay? So this was a trip that my wife and I were, just the two of us. So imagine, you were 20 miles away from civilization, in the middle of nowhere, no cell phone, okay? We had our car, our things, no cell phone or nothing. And I knew that the mountain lion sightings were happening on the previous weeks, but I didn't tell my wife because I didn't want her to get scared. Okay, so the way that this photo happens is that you take several photos. This is a composite. Obviously, the sky is one photo, and then you do what we call light painting. So I pretty much use a torch, and I painted each pieces of the tree, and then I put them all together in post to get this effect. The interesting thing is that you cannot have other types of light around it, because if you do, you're going to impact the way you capture the location. Every time between photos, while I was trying to figure out if I took a good photo or not, I would turn all the lights, all the torches and everything. Because I said, okay, if there is a mountain lion, at least I'm going to see the mountain lion because all the lights are on. My wife kept saying, oh, let's turn it all off. I can see the sky. I said, no, let's keep all on. I didn't tell her the story until we left the place. But there is one problem with it. I absolutely love this photo. I think the sky is perfect. The location is perfect. I'm really looking forward to go back there again in the workshop next year. But it's like there is one problem with this photo. It's like if you look closely, the top of the tree is out of focus. Okay? Because by then, after like 30 minutes building this photo, my wife kept talking about it, and I finally told her about the mountain lion. And she said, okay, let's get out of here. So I didn't check the last photo that had the tree here, the top of the tree. And even though they're from a professional photographer point of view, this is a crap photo because I didn't even check the focus. I still absolutely love it just because I can tell the story of it to everybody afterwards. So I think that's a good thing about it. Okay, art of seeing. This is another aspect of this. This is one of those photos that it was 3 or 4 years in the making. So this is Klein Oak High School down in Spring, if anybody has driven through there, okay? So they put those flags in front of the school every year for September 11, okay? And they put 3,000 flags in front of the school. My daughter went to that school, and one day I was driving by, and I noticed that the sun at that time of the year in September was going down exactly behind the flags. So the idea of the photo came to me while I was driving through there. So I had 2 seconds to look at the sun, look at the flags, and think about how I was going to capture that photo. I didn't have a chance to go back there that year. For some reason, I got busy with work, and I didn't have a chance to go back that year. The next year, we were out of town for September 11. Then the next year, it rained the whole time that week. Okay, this was probably 4 years after I had the idea of the photo. I finally had the perfect conditions to come back and take this photo. I think this, for me, is one of the iconic photos I have in my portfolio for sure. And especially every year, September 11, it brings the memory of what happened on that day in a very graceful way. So I really love this photo. And again, it's a place that I would drive by every day to drop my daughter. But that comes back to me on one point. It's like the art of seeing is that sometimes the best photos that you're going to take are the ones that you take close home, because you have a chance to go again and again and again to this place and try different perspectives and different weathers and different views and different lights. And this is just a great example of that. So things that I talk about when I'm working with my students on trying to create or trying to cultivate, as I said here, this photography eyes. So composition. It's like sometimes we try to rush too much to take a photo, and we don't think about the photo that we have and how we're going to compose it. And I remember when Frank and I and a friend were in Wyoming last year and we're taking photos, I always kept telling Frank, like, look at the borders of your photo. What is on the borders of your photo? Is that something that you can cut? Is there something that you can add? So you can create a more balanced composition from that point of view. So think about it. The next time that you are taking a photo, look at the borders. And I train my eye to do that It's like I don't take a photo without looking at all the sidelines of my photo to see what's in there, what's not in there, so I can understand what I'm going to remove or what I should add. And I love this one. This again, is from the Colorado Fall Colors Workshop. And this was a very interesting place because we were in Colorado at the end of September, and we were not expecting snow at all. And after 3 days, we had snow overnight, and then you had the fall colors and the white on the peaks for all the photos. So you can imagine, like, we spent like the whole day taking photos with these kind of conditions. Light and shadow. Again, this is something that I love to play with. This photo was selected as the photo of the day by Sony on their social media last year. This is a location in Scotland that we went to. And there, again, it was very early in the morning. We had the sun coming up through the mountains. And how do you play with the light and shadow in your photos? And I think this is something that you always have to think about it. Because a lot of people get worried about where the light is. But I would tell you, it's like you have to be worried about both, where the light is and where the light is not, and try to find the balance. So think about that when you're taking photos. Observation and mindfulness. So that's a very interesting one. So that's that one on the left is in Thailand. And this is the old capital of Thailand. That's about 2 hours north of Bangkok. And we went over there for a day to take photos. And the interesting thing about this day is that, as you can imagine, everybody in my tour group was in the front of the building taking photos of the Buddha from the front. Okay. I took the photo. I didn't think it was good by any means, or different, or would provide a perspective. So I came all the way to the back, and I found this window at the back of the building that provides not only the perfect framing from a composition point of view, but it provides a very different perspective of a place that, again, has been probably photographed like 1,000 times just that day. Okay, so think about how can you look at the places with a different perspective so you can try to develop that that component of your photography as you continue to develop your skills. And patience, that's an interesting one. This little guy, I was coming back from a dive in, I think this is Bonaire, and I noticed this guy speaking out of the pier, out of this little coral out of the pier, and I thought, oh, that's going to become, again, thinking about how the photo is going to come up, I thought that, oh, that's going to be a fantastic photo. So I said, okay, I'm probably going to do that as a night photo. So I went over there before dinner. My wife and my daughter were sitting at the top of the pier. I was at the pillars of the pier for 95 minutes to get this photo on the same spot. 95 minutes just to get this photo. So sometimes you have to have patience, especially in macro photography underwater, to try to get this kind of results and everything. So I wanna finish at least this portion with how can you find, and through your adventures, and I'm very big on this adventure photography in terms of the experience. I'm much less about the photo itself and much more about the experience. So we have a good time and we see absolute amazing places. I'm pretty sure that Frank has different perspectives when he goes on adventures with me, but let's see how this is going to continue to develop. It seems he liked it because he wants to come back. So it's like, okay, so that's the thing. Okay, so you have to find this fulfillment on what you do. And this one is in Oregon. This was like a 2-hour hike in the middle of the mountains. The temperature was around 25 degrees. And we went all the way to the top of the mountain to look for waterfalls. So I can tell you, like, even though we were miserable during that day from a hiking point of view, I can tell you just the views of the waterfalls we had were absolutely fulfilling from that point of view. Okay. So we're talking about adventures. So just to give you guys a perspective on what I'm up to. So I'm going to Patagonia, Antarctica in a couple of weeks. So I know Anne and others over there. So I'm going to do my thing, and I'm going to do Ushuaia. and then Antarctica because this is one of what I call my scouting trips, so I can build workshops in the future. So that is coming, and then I can share more. If you follow me on social media, I'm probably going to vlog that trip real time, so you're going to see all the adventures. I want to do the wildflowers again. I don't know who here went with the wildflowers with me last year. So we're thinking about doing it again. So probably it's going to be like end of March, beginning of April, as soon as I come back from Antarctica. So let's hope we get good conditions. I'm going to Thailand again in June to do a scouting trip over there, so I can build a workshop for the future to take people to Thailand. Absolute amazing locations. And the best thing is that you can have dinner for $3. So not a lot of places around the world you can have dinner for $3. So that's a great advantage. We're going to Ireland in September for a scouting trip also. I'm going to build a workshop to take people in Ireland. I have a workshop in Scotland, and I'm going to have one in Ireland also. That's the plan for September. And then October, some friends are going to gather to Oregon. So I know Craig is going. Anybody else here is going? Okay. And Frank is going again. You see? It's like he likes it. So the story of this is that I have a workshop that I do in Oregon, and I had promised Daryl I was going to take him to Oregon with me. So we have been talking about this for a long time. So we're going to do this in October, and we said, okay, if we're going the two of us, why not take other people? So I think we're all going to have fun together. But I promise everybody on this trip that there won't be more than like 500 yards of walking. Okay. Downhill, all downhill. Yeah, no, seriously. Like the good thing about Oregon is that we don't have to walk a lot. But this is the kind of thing. This is the same location from the other photo on another day. Okay. Again, just try to rush with the rangers going behind you. And you know, it's funny because it gets to a point that the rangers are trying to get everybody out on this side of the park, and then you run to the other side and take photos from this side. But it's an absolute fantastic location. So if you have had the chance to do the kind of stuff we are going to do later this year with some folks here, it's a fantastic opportunity. And this is the workshop. So this is the Coral Alpha workshop. You guys saw a lot of photos from that in this presentation. That's going to be for fall next year in 2026. I try to do one workshop per year, and that's going to be 2026. We're going to take people to some of those locations that you guys saw in the presentation. So if anybody's interested on this kind of thing, let me know, and we can talk about it. So thank you.